The Miami Hurricanes have just moved a step closer to flipping one of their top wide receiver targets.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Get your spatulas out. It's loafer season out there. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On this episode of Locked On Canes, they say actions speak louder than words, but both the actions and the words of Miami committed quarterback Dereon Coleman have been powerful so far at the Elite 11 finals. We'll talk about it. Is a visit ever going to happen? An official visit for wide receiver target Vance Spafford. He's another one Miami's trying to flip. He's committed to Georgia. He was, emphasis on was, scheduled to visit Miami officially this weekend. What happened and what happens next? And yeah, there are multiple wide receivers committed to other schools that Miami is trying to flip before this 2026 cycle is over. That includes Vance Spafford. That includes top receiver Tristan Keys, who's committed to LSU. And it also includes Tennessee Volunteers committed receiver Tyran Evans, who's a 4-star rated receiver at on3.com. Now, in order to flip somebody, two things have to happen. First of those things is they have to decommit to where they're currently committed to, and then you have to earn their verbal commitment. Step one is already clear. So this was big breaking news, my friends. And Miami fans who are following recruiting and wondering, when are we going to get the first wide receiver commit of 2026? I believe Tyran Evans could be the first and next of those dominoes to fall. So as of Wednesday night, Evans, who has been committed, I believe, since the summer to the Tennessee Volunteers, he decommitted on social media. He said, quote, "After a lot of prayer and thought, I've decided to decommit from the University of Tennessee," he wrote. "Thank you to Coach Heupel, Coach Kelsey Pope, Coach Joey Halsey, and the entire Vol staff for believing in me. I appreciate everything you've done for me and for my family." So the timing of the Tyran Evans decommit bodes very well for Miami, because as of a few days ago, Evans was visiting the University of Miami officially, just had his OV to Miami this past weekend, and it was a really good one. Miami rolled out the red carpet for him, had a plan for him on the field, presented their culture off the field, which Evans said he really enjoyed that, and he appreciates the opportunity down here in Miami. And Evans had mentioned after the Miami visit, part of his process would be, supposedly taking his final official visit, which was scheduled to happen in Tennessee this weekend. And then after the Vols visit, where he was committed to play, he would really make up his mind. Well, canceled the Tennessee visit, decommitted from UT. And so, yeah, it looks like Miami is going to be the final official visit that Tyran Evans takes. We're already seeing crystal balls fly in. Gabby Urrutia at Inside the U dropped one in Miami's favor to land Tyran Evans after the Tennessee decommitment. And I strongly believe that is going to happen. Tyran Evans, let's talk about the player. Listed at 6'3", 185 pounds. The intel we've been getting is he seems like he's a little bit bigger and a little bit taller than the listing, which was good. And it's not surprising. This player is also, in addition to Tennessee, where he just decommitted from, he's being sought after by NC State, which is the home state school for him, and Kentucky. They've also been in the mix. Tyran Evans, this is a player, folks, that is noted for his physicality and the matchup problems he creates for opposing defenses. He's already a good blocker, which is going to give him a shorter learning curve at the college level, which is good. And receivers blocking is non-negotiable in Miami's offense. He's also capable of stretching the field at a high level. Now, if you look at Tyran Evans' stats as a junior, playing his high school ball in Carolina last year, this is really impressive stuff. He averaged just over 27 yards per catch last season, 27.2 yards. He plays at Huff High School in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is one of the bigger markets and one of the more competitive high school football districts in that state. 36 receptions, 980 yards, and 14 receiving touchdowns. Here's what Evans told 24/7 Sports after his official visit to Miami this weekend. Quote, "I feel pretty good," he said. "I love this school. It's a lot to take in. They pretty much just showed me around the whole place and showed me how beautiful it is. It's one of my top schools," he says. Evans added of Miami. Kevin Beard, Mario Cristobal, ever since he came to my school, he told me he was going to recruit me harder. And ever since, he just did it, he said. So Tyran Evans, again, we're keeping our eye on this one, folks. This one may end up being a Miami Hurricanes commit, as he recently decommitted from Tennessee. We mentioned a couple of the other receivers that we're watching, a few of the other receivers that we're watching. We'll talk about Vance Spafford a little bit later on in this episode. Tristan Keys is another one. I know a lot of schools, including Miami, are trying to flip him, including Tennessee. Tennessee, who's just lost out on Tyran Evans. Tristan Keys is someone that they're hotly after. But another one who just visited Miami this past weekend, as we've talked about him a lot these past few days here on Locked On Canes, is Miami Northwestern, 5-star, 6'5", standout wide receiver and basketball player, Calvin Russell. Now, we're still, until proven otherwise, not feeling that great about Russell heading into his July 5th commitment date. But people are pointing out a lot can happen between June 19th and July 5th. That's in recruiting time. It's like dog years are different than people years. Recruiting days are like years in real life. A lot can happen between now and July 5th. But we haven't been feeling that great about Miami. LSU has been the spot that's really been trending for Calvin Russell lately. And, a lot of folks did this, including ourselves here. We kind of dissected the comments that Calvin Russell made after his Miami visit, and it seemed very lukewarm. I compared it to a 3-star Yelp review. It doesn't sound like he's over the moon enthusiastic about the U. Maybe that's just the way he talks, and maybe that's how his personality is. And I think Calvin Russell probably heard some of the chatter. I mean, it's hard to avoid things like this on social media with a lot of Miami fans kind of feeling down on where he stands with Miami. And so for what it's worth, he posted this on his X account. And, I certainly, I like to try and take players at their word. And I hope that this is completely on the level. We'll find out July 5th when he verbally commits somewhere. But Calvin Russell sent out on X, listen, I love the U. And he posted a picture. One of those is cool. It's him wearing the basketball uniform, holding the basketball and the football, because he wants to be a 2-sport athlete. At Miami, he has offers from the basketball team and from the football team. They're going to let him do both if he comes here. And then he's also got, the football gear on with his family members there with him. So he wants you to know, Calvin Russell wants you to know, despite some of the negative rhetoric that's been going around, he loves Miami. And again, if Miami can pull this off, whether they pull it off on July 5th or December 3rd, which is National Signing Day, that's the one that counts, right? Because his first commitment may not be his last. This one's a marathon, not a sprint, but this is one of the top local players, top player in the state of Florida. If Miami can pull this off and land Calvin Russell, your receiver room is in tremendous shape. Same thing can be said for Vance Spafford. What's going on there? Georgia committed receiver who a lot of folks do not expect is going to be in Georgia's signing class of 2026. Miami is considered a top option for him. So why did he cancel his Miami visit this weekend? You want to keep it locked right here. We are only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, we're only getting started with Monarch Money. We all need a budget. And if you've ever checked your bank account like we all have and wondered, where did all my money go? You need Monarch Money. Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track of your spending, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, delivering you full visibility and control over your finances. Guys, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's more than that. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized exactly how much I was spending and overspending on things like food delivery and streaming services. But now I budget smarter and I save so much more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Just use our code Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code Locked On College. That's all one word, Locked On College, and they will give you half off your first year. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I are going to have a new episode coming up. We're going to be talking about odds to win the conference. We're going to take a deep dive on Louisville later this week. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts, and we're available free on YouTube. All right, so some disappointing news came out on Wednesday night. Again, one of Miami's top wide receiver targets. This has very much been a receiver-themed episode with what we've talked about so far. Vance Spafford is a blue-chip University of Georgia commit who a lot of folks around Athens don't expect him to stick in their class, or do they now? So he made some news Wednesday night for canceling an upcoming visit that was supposed to happen this weekend at the University of Miami. Now, for anybody who's been following recruiting for a long time, you understand what this sort of thing usually means. When a player cancels an official visit somewhere, it's not good. That usually means that's a wrap. So Miami fans, I think rightfully so, with a lack of context here. If you don't have the full context, I can understand Miami fans. You see the news. Vance Spafford cancels his Miami visit. You're thinking Miami's out of it. He doesn't want to be here. Or you're probably thinking UGA is really trying to lock him in. That you could understand. And Miami and Georgia have had some high-profile recruiting battles, and there's more of these that are going to come to a head here, like Derek Cooper, five-star running back out of Chaminade. That looks to be a Miami versus Georgia situation. Miami recently beat Georgia for Jackson Cantwell, the top player in the entire class. And so you see this headline, and I'm not saying it's wrong to think this way, but you see Spafford canceling his Miami visit, you're probably thinking, Georgia they want to make sure he doesn't get anywhere near Miami's campus. Let's step in. Ultimatum time. Hey, if you want to be a Georgia Bulldog, you better not go down to Miami. They're thinking something like that happened. But again, folks, if you take the full context here, and huge credit to John Garcia Jr. of Rivals for posting bits of an interview, a conversation he had with Spafford. If you take Spafford at his word, the context makes this a little bit more makes it feel a little bit better, I should say, from a Miami point of view. So Spafford said, I will not be going this weekend to Miami. Not really too sure right now. I just can't make it right now with my health, he said. Currently, I'm sick. The 5-star, which is a camp, is coming up right around the corner, and I really want to do well at that. So I'm not too sure about that, but I know I won't be able to make it, talking about his Miami visit. So he's allegedly, trying to get healthy before he competes coming up. Spafford has visited Miami several times unofficially. He said, quote, just kind of still thinking and talking and going through the process. He said, I'm just thinking. I don't really have much going on. He said, I informed Miami on Wednesday, informed them he won't be coming. So I'm still figuring that out and seeing what I want to do with them. So again, I'm not saying this is great news, but if he really is, and I take him at his word. You guys know I tend to be a half glass half full type of guy. You take him at his word. It sounds as though he is still interested in seeing Miami. It's just not going to happen allegedly this weekend. Now, the word coming out of Coral Gables is, quote, Miami is trying to work through this, that they have certainly not turned the page or given up on Spafford, that there's still a chance Miami feels they can flip this player from his Georgia commitment, and that they're going to find a way to get him on campus. So just because the visit is apparently not going to happen this weekend doesn't mean Spafford won't find a way to visit Miami again. That's kind of where we're at on this. So let's not close the door completely. Now, some of the other speculation out here is, this player, he plays at Mission Viejo High School in California, Southern California, I believe, may be thinking of staying closer to home on the West Coast. So again, I can't speak to that, but I will say anyone who's automatically jumping to conclusions that if he's not going to visit Miami this weekend, he's definitely not coming to Miami, doesn't seem like the door is completely closed. And Miami does still have a feeling that that things could trend in their direction for Vance Spafford. But it's something to look at. And again, this has been a strange class for wide receiver recruiting because people wonder, does the local superhero Calvin Russell, does he even want to stay in South Florida or does he want to leave? Some of the other big time targets like Spafford and like Tristan Keys are committed elsewhere. So how likely is it to actually flip these guys? Again, we do feel really good about Tyran Evans based on the recent intel there and him decommitting from Tennessee. But this has been a weird cycle so far for wide receivers. Now, if you zoom out a little bit and you talk about pass catchers, we also think Miami will reiterate what we talked about on Tuesday. We think Miami's in a pretty good spot for Israel Briggs, the 4-star tight end prospect who recently announced his commitment date is coming up 5 days from now, June 24th. That's next Tuesday. Israel Briggs is going to commit, and his choices are Miami and LSU. And we like the way Miami has been trending there. So that's a pass catcher who's been really prolific in high school, who could end up trending in Miami's direction. And, we hope Tyran Evans and Vance Spafford and Calvin Russell and Tristan Keys, we hope they start trending in Miami's direction again. So that's the latest on that front. Speaking of recruiting, Miami's quarterback of the future, 2026 4-star QB, Dereon Coleman, is currently competing. And this is prestigious, folks, to have your committed high school quarterback competing in the Elite 11 finals, which is the most prestigious camp for high school quarterbacks. The best of the best go to the Elite 11 finals. Dereon Coleman is out there competing. He's doing well, and he's also saying all the right things about Miami. We'll talk about it next. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out the portal. Our very good friend Brian Smith does a really good job breaking down all things recruiting. It's a very busy month for him. June into July, very busy. Does a great job breaking down NIL, which has been the hot topic in college sports over the past 3.5 years. And he does a really good job breaking down the transfer portal as well. So check out the Portal podcast, which is available free, like this show, wherever you get your podcasts, and available free on YouTube. It's been really fun, since he's been committed here for over a year, following the rise of Orlando Jones starting quarterback Dereon Coleman, Miami Hurricanes verbal commit, because when he first got on everyone's radar, and this is obviously somebody that Shannon Dawson thinks very highly of and Mario Cristobal thinks very highly of, he's someone who's been gradually climbing up the rankings. Actually, his ascent has been pretty meteoric over the past few months when he's been competing in a lot of different camps and 7-on-7s and really impressing folks out there. And he's also hit a little bit of a growth spurt, right? I mean, it wasn't too long ago you were talking about Dereon Coleman being like under 6 foot, like so undersized for that position. He wasn't getting a lot of respect. He's now around 6'1". So I hopefully he's got a couple more inches in him. But even if he doesn't, Dereon Coleman, some of the ways he's been described so far is he's competing in the Elite 11 finals out in California. And the thing that's probably impressed onlookers and scouts there the most has been his quick release. But outside of that, his velocity. Everyone seems to be saying that, for a player, again, his size, judge me by my size, do you? Yoda once said, for a player his size, everyone's like, wow, how can that guy generate so much torque and velocity on his throws? And actually, for Dereon Coleman, his deep ball may be the most impressive part of his game. And you guys know, if you go back several months, you're on Locked On Canes, and we got to bring this guy back on again. And we got to get Dereon on the show as well. But we've had his quarterbacks coach, his personal quarterbacks coach, Balin Trujillo, on the show before. And Balin, who's worked with some really good, Division I quarterbacks. He's also coached Noah Grubbs, who's now at Notre Dame. He's coached a lot of good players at that position. And Trujillo told us, Dereon Coleman has the best arm talent of any quarterback that he's coached before. And you see that the velocity, the accuracy, the quick release. He's also got really good footwork and elusiveness, Coleman. Some of the drills that they're doing out there, I was watching a lot of the tape from Elite 11 when he's, getting around and eluding pass rushers. He looks really smooth and really quick and decisive in the way he does that. So he's been doing well. I mean, usually the rankings coming out of the first couple of days usually have him around like number 7 or number 8. Maybe some of the haters out there rank him outside the top 11, but he has been holding his own. And Dereon Coleman, he's a composite 4-star, because most of the recruiting services have him rated 4 stars. The only one that doesn't is 24/7 Sports, which does not surprise Miami fans who follow this stuff. So they've got him rated as 3 stars, but he's been outperforming a lot of 4 stars and even some 5 stars so far at the Elite 11 finals. So to see Dereon Coleman out there holding his own is really awesome. And I love what he said, because Coleman, he was interviewed when he checked into Elite 11 by 24/7 Sports, and he compares himself a little bit to Cam Ward, but in not in a like a braggadocious way. Like I liked the comparison that he made, and he also talked about some of the receivers that he's trying to recruit. Sometimes your best recruiters are the commits and your own recruits. He said, quote, "They saw what Cam Ward did, and they only got a year of that," he said. "Imagine me being there 3 to 4 years. That says it all. We're going to go win a national championship," Coleman said. And man, he really believes that, Coleman. And this is not the first time he's said that. Like, he's talked about wanting to come to Miami and win a natty. Like, he says it and he wants to speak it into truth. He says, "Ward said the same thing that I say. Don't let them tell you what you can and can't do," Coleman said. "He came from way below where I am. That actually hits my heart when he says it too. I just know I can do what I want to do when I put my heart into it." He's referencing when he talks about where Cam Ward came from. Ward, as you all know, was a 0-star recruit, was unrated coming out of high school, and he had one offer coming out of high school, and that was from Incarnate Word, Division II or FCS. He had to work his way up, being completely not just like Cam Ward was not underrated. I believe Dereon Coleman is underrated. Cam Ward was unrated, and he came out, and it wasn't just Miami, of course. He dazzled at Incarnate Word. He dazzled at Washington State, and then he had his best year at Miami and took himself from a day 2 or a day 3 draft pick into first overall pick. So Dereon Coleman, who knows he's not as underrated or unrated as Ward was coming out of high school, but he knows that he can come to Miami. He can fit in Miami's offense, because quarterbacks seem to be a fan of what Shannon Dawson does. We hear what Carson Beck says about it. We heard everything that Cam Ward said about Shannon Dawson, who's not only the offensive coordinator at the U, but also the quarterback's coach. And Dereon Coleman believes that he can not only help raise Miami, but Miami can help raise his stock. And when you talk about wanting to win a national championship, it's what every Miami fan wants to hear. It's been 24 years. I feel like the lady from Titanic dropping the necklace. It's been 84 years. Like, we're not at 84, but 24. I'm not getting any younger here, guys. I want to win another natty before it's all over. Coleman also said that he's actively recruiting several elite receivers. It's a lot of Florida boys, he said, but I can name Calvin Russell, Tristan Keys, Vance Spafford, Braden Robinson, and Derek Cooper, who's not a receiver, but you know what? Cooper could probably play receiver if he wanted to. He plays every position. He says there's a lot more, but those are just off the top of my head. Oh, and he added Jason Lopez. He says there's a lot more I can name. It's just too much off the top of my head. And I'm glad that he brought up Jason Lopez, J-Rock, because Lopez is going to be visiting this weekend. Vance Spafford may not be, but another one of Miami's top targets, 4-star slot receiver Jason Lopez is. And Lopez is another one. If he comes to Miami, he plans to play both football and basketball, the same way Calvin Russell would if he ends up at the University of Miami. And Lopez, he obviously coming out of high school, he reminds a lot of people of Xavier Restrepo, but more athletic upside. I'm not saying he'll be better than or as good as Xavier Restrepo, who statistically is, surprisingly enough, based on so many incredible receivers who have played at Miami over the years. Xavier Restrepo is the career leader in almost every category. Jason Lopez, we believe, has the physical potential to be even better. So hopefully with J-Rock visiting this weekend, Dereon Coleman, Shannon Dawson, Kevin Beard, everybody's in his year, and hopefully J-Rock, who's another local guy from Chaminade, ends up being a Miami Hurricane. Yeah, I know with him having the Chaminade connection, there's even been a little buzz. Like I think Lopez, I think it's fair to say Miami is the trending leader, but there's even been a little bit of buzz for NC State for him since C.J. Bailey, whose former high school quarterback, is the quarterback of the Wolfpack. But I like the way Miami stands for J-Rock, and hopefully we can get that one over the finish line, because that's, shame on me for not mentioning him earlier, because when I talked about some of these top wide receiver targets, I should have mentioned Lopez earlier, but I'm mentioning him now. Another recruiting note is that Breck Kolojay, according to on3sports.com, the four-star blue chip interior offensive lineman, he's Miami's final O-line target. They've already got 6 verbally committed, most recently friend of the show, Cannon Pickett. But Breck Kolojay could be the 7th offensive lineman and one of the very best. So he says he's nearing a decision. He says, I'm going to be deciding soon, he told On3 Sports. Guys are committing fast. Things have really sped up, and I will definitely commit before the season, before the high school season starts. So that means this summer he wants to commit, and it's probably going to happen in July. It's coming soon. Now, with Kolojay, we talk about Miami versus Georgia battles, whether it's Vance Spafford, Jackson Cantwell, Derek Cooper. Breck Kolojay is another one of those. It looks like right now Miami and UGA are the 2 schools that are best positioned to land Breck Kolojay's verbal commitment. He says, those are the 2 schools I have liked a lot for a long time. I've been to Miami 9 times, he said. I've been their guy since my freshman year. They always talk about the impact I can make and how I can be a leader there on day one. They really sell O-line play, with the Coach Cristobal being the head coach who played it and coached it. It really is an O-line run team, and that's very intriguing to me, he said about Miami. So, yeah, we think about all the decisions that are coming down either at the end of this month, early July. Kolojay could be another one of those who's going to decide at some point in July. Folks, thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure you smash that like button. If you're watching us on YouTube, smash that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. We're trying to get to 21,000 YouTube subscribers before the season starts. That would be great. We're like over 20,500 right now. And guys, make sure you listen to the audio version. I think it's very convenient. You can take us with you wherever you go. You listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, listen to us in the car, on a jog, wherever. Make sure you subscribe there. And we will talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.